In the late 1900s, Ireland experienced a huge economic boom. People called it the Celtic Tiger. During this time of growth, a dangerous group called the Kinahan Organised Crime Group, also known as the Kinahan Cartel, appeared. Starting in Dublin, the cartel took advantage of the changing economy, exploiting weaknesses in society. Kinahan, a clever man with a criminal past, led the cartel. He took the cartel from small crimes to drug trafficking, building a network of suppliers and distributors. Their money and power grew, silencing anyone who got in their way. The Kinahan cartel grew quickly and became a worldwide network. Money from drug trafficking helped them expand into money laundering and legal businesses. Daniel Kinahan, Christie's son, became a big name in professional boxing, hiding their criminal activities. Boxing was a smart move for the cartel, making them look respectable and helping them make powerful friends. But behind this respectable front was a dark world of crime. The Kinahan cartel's influence spread far beyond Ireland, impacting the global underworld. The Kinahan cartel was a family business. Christy Kinahan prepared his sons Daniel and Christopher Jr. to take over. Daniel became the strategic planner, growing their drug empire. Christopher Jr. was in charge of enforcement, known for his ruthlessness. Together they were a powerful force, tightening their control over Ireland's criminal world. They even influenced corrupt officials, police and politicians. The cartel's reign of terror left a trail of violence and fear. The Kinahan cartel's drug operation was huge and complex. They took advantage of the demand for drugs, creating a network of suppliers and distributors. They teamed up with cartels around the world to get large amounts of drugs. Ireland became a main entry point for their shipments hidden in legal goods. The drugs were then given to wholesalers and street dealers, feeding the demand. Their control over the supply and their ruthless tactics made them incredibly powerful. The Kinahan cartel needed to clean their money, making illegal money look legal. They used fake companies, secret bank accounts, and businesses that looked real but weren't. They bought expensive things and gambled with large amounts of money to turn cash into things that were harder to track. Their people pretended to be wealthy businessmen, getting into legitimate businesses. Their complex money laundering operation allowed them to operate without getting caught. This made them richer and more powerful, helping their criminal ambitions. Violence was important for the Kinahan cartel to stay in control. They needed a lot of weapons. They became arms dealers, getting all kinds of weapons. These weapons fueled gang violence, scaring communities. Controlling the weapons made them more powerful. Their involvement in the arms trade was a dangerous step. Dublin's streets were filled with gun violence, showing how powerful and terrifying they were. Christy Kinahan, known as the Dapper Don, led the cartel with careful planning. He went from a small-time thief to a powerful drug lord. He surrounded himself with loyal people, the backbone of the cartel. Daniel tried to look legitimate through professional boxing, expanding their network. Christopher Jr. ruled through fear and violence, making sure people stayed loyal. This mix of intelligence and force made the cartel very strong. Below the Kinahan brothers were trusted lieutenants who kept the cartel running. Liam Byrne controlled Dublin's operations, using fear to control people. Johnny Cash Morrissey laundered money through boxing and finance. The enforcers were a diverse group, each with special skills. Their local power and international connections made the cartel's reach wider. They were a major force in the global underworld. The Kinahan cartel succeeded by making deals with other criminal groups. Connections to the Moroccan mafia and Ndrangheta gave them access to drugs. Relationships with corrupt officials and influential people expanded their network. These alliances made them a dominant force. The cartel's power came from their ability to make helpful partnerships. Their influence went far beyond Ireland, impacting the global underworld. The Kinahan cartel and Hutch gang started a war. Gary Hutch's murder started the conflict. It was like a declaration of war. The unsteady peace was broken and violence exploded in Dublin. Loyalties were tested and old grudges were settled brutally. The feud caused many deaths and covered Dublin's streets in blood. The war was fueled by revenge, greed, and a desire for power. Section 2. A city under siege. Blood on the streets of Dublin. The attack at the Regency Hotel in February 2016 was a turning point in the Hutch-Kinahan feud. This shocking act of violence turned a simmering conflict into a full-blown crisis. It was carefully planned and carried out like a military operation. The goal was not just to kill rivals, but to send a terrifying message: don't mess with the Kinahans. After the chaos at the Regency Hotel, the true horror of the violence became clear. David Byrne, an important member of the Kinahan cartel, was dead, shot many times. Pictures of masked gunmen, dressed like police officers, storming the hotel with AK-47s were seen all over the world. It showed everyone that Dublin was not safe from the violence happening in other European cities. The Regency Hotel attack was a declaration of war, a public execution that demanded revenge. The Hutch gang, after losing one of their own, had to retaliate. They had to avenge their fallen comrade and protect their shrinking territory. The cycle of violence, once started, was hard to stop. Each attack led to a more brutal response. Dublin's streets, once safe, became a battleground. Drive-by shootings became common. Innocent people caught in the crossfire paid the price for a war they had nothing to do with. The city, once a symbol of hope, was now ruled by fear, overshadowed by the feud. Section 3. Retaliation and retribution, the brutal calculus of revenge. The Hutch-Kinahan feud had no rules. It was a brutal war where revenge was the only goal, and innocent people getting hurt was just the cost of doing business. The back-and-forth killings, each one a planned act of revenge, became a predictable pattern. Each death made the conflict worse. 3 days after the Regency Hotel attack, Eddie Hutch, senior brother of Jerry the Monk Hutch and uncle to Gary, was shot dead in his home. The message was clear. The Kinahans didn't want peace. They wanted to destroy their enemies completely, even if it meant targeting family members with little connection to crime. The deaths continued, each one a grim statistic in a seemingly endless cycle of violence. The victims, often men connected to either side of the feud, were gunned down in their homes, on the streets, even in broad daylight. Their murders showed how far the cartel's reach was and how ruthless they were. The violence spread to nearby counties and even across international borders, threatening to destabilize the whole region. The brutal focus on revenge left no room for mercy. The killers, often young men used to violence, carried out their tasks efficiently. Their loyalty to their gangs was more important than anything else. The feud, like a cancer in Dublin, seemed unstoppable, a stark reminder of how violent people can be and the terrible consequences of greed and ambition. Section 1. The thin blue line. Gardaí under fire. The Hutch-Kinahan feud put huge pressure on the Garda Síochána. They had to keep order in a city filled with fear. Facing a ruthless enemy, the Gardaí were on the front lines. The cartel, with its money and informants, tested their resources, but the Gardaí were not to be underestimated. They fought back with tenacity and determination. They formed the Drugs and Organized Crime Bureau, or DOCB. The DOCB used a proactive, intelligence-led approach. They went undercover, used informants, and built cases. Their goal was to destroy the cartel completely. The work was dangerous, often requiring undercover officers. The cartel was known for its brutality. Despite the risks, the DOCB kept going. They were determined to protect their city and bring justice. Section 2. International dragnet closing in on a global empire. The Kinahan cartel, with all its power, made a big mistake. They underestimated international law enforcement. As the cartel grew outside Ireland, agencies like the US Drug Enforcement Administration, the UK's National Crime Agency, and Europol got involved. Each agency had its own reasons for wanting to take down the cartel. The net began to close as information was shared, intelligence gathered, and joint operations planned. The cartel's once secret network of fake companies, hidden bank accounts, and front businesses started to fall apart under the watchful eye of international financial investigators. The appearance of legitimacy that had protected their illegal money was disappearing, revealing their criminal enterprise. Sanctions were put in place, assets were frozen, and key members were arrested in countries like Spain, Dubai, and the United States. The cartel, used to doing whatever they wanted, found themselves increasingly isolated. Their movements were tracked, their communications intercepted, and everything they did was watched by a global network of law enforcement agencies. The international effort wasn't just about arrests and seizures. It was about destroying the cartel's support network, targeting the lawyers, accountants, and businessmen who helped them. The message was clear: helping organized crime would have serious consequences. The world was no longer a safe place for the Kinahan cartel. Section 3. The fight continues. Dismantling a criminal legacy. The arrest of Christy Kinahan Sr. in 2016, captured at his villa in Spain, was a big win for law enforcement. Catching the cartel's leader, once thought to be untouchable, shocked the criminal world and marked a turning point in the fight against organized crime in Ireland. But the fight wasn't over. Daniel Kinahan, now leading the family business, was just as clever and ruthless as his father. He moved his operations to Dubai, a city known for its loose financial rules and willingness to ignore the activities of wealthy people, no matter where their money came from. From Dubai, Daniel Kinahan continued to run the cartel, though with less power. The arrests, sanctions, and constant pressure from law enforcement had weakened the cartel, forcing them to be more careful. The Gardaí kept pursuing the cartel, working with international partners to build cases against its remaining members. They knew this fight was a marathon, not a sprint, and that taking down the Kinahan legacy would take unwavering dedication and a commitment to justice for the victims of their crimes. The message was clear. The days of getting away with crime were over, and the law would eventually catch up with those who profited from misery and violence. Section 1. The sun sets on the empire. Recent years have seen a big change in organized crime in Ireland. The Kinahan cartel, once thought invincible, has been significantly weakened by constant pressure from law enforcement, international cooperation, and several important arrests. The cartel's criminal empire, built on drugs, violence, and corruption, has been shaken, and its future is uncertain. The arrest of key members like Liam Byrne and Johnny Cash Morrissey, and the efforts to bring Daniel Kinahan back from Dubai to face trial in Ireland have hurt the cartel's ability to operate. The flow of drugs into Ireland has been disrupted, their financial networks damaged, and their image of invincibility shattered. The message from law enforcement is clear. The party is over, and those who profited from suffering will be held accountable. But it's too early to say the Kinahan cartel is defeated. The organization, though weaker, is still dangerous. They still have money, hidden assets, and loyal members willing to do their dirty work. The promise of easy money and the cartel's reputation for violence will attract new recruits, eager to replace those who have been caught. The fight against organized crime is a never-ending battle between law enforcement and criminals. The Kinahan cartel, despite its problems, remains a threat, able to adapt and find new ways to commit crimes. The international community must stay alert, sharing information, working together, and keeping up the pressure to make sure the cartel doesn't regain its power. Section 2. Scars on the Emerald Isle. The Kinahan cartel's reign of terror has scarred Irish society. Dublin's once lively streets now bear the marks of violence. Gunshots remind us of the human cost of the drug trade. The Hutch-Kinahan feud killed innocents and destroyed families. The cartel's influence extended beyond Dublin's underworld. They corrupted officials and tarnished professional boxing. Their wealth contrasted sharply with the poverty they caused. The fight against the cartel has come at a cost. Law enforcement's efforts diverted resources from other issues. The scars of the cartel's reign will take time to heal. The Kinahan cartel's story shows the damage of organized crime. Continued investment in law enforcement and social programs is needed. Only by working together can Ireland move past the Kinahan era.